On this video, we're going to be taking a look at creating an item for compliance and onboarding purposes. So to be able to go into the compliance and onboarding section of the system and to create items and packages, you must have been given allocated permissions to view the Adapt Manager profile. So if you cannot see this or you've not been given permission, but you do need to start creating items in the system, please either speak to your administrator at your company or get in touch with client services and they'll be able to help you. So as you can see, I have a compliance and onboarding menu, and in here is where you can go and create a new item. So what exactly is an item? So an item, put simply, is each requirement or each document that you need from a candidate. You're going to build a separate item for that requirement or that document. So we're going to go and do that now. So the first field in here is check type. So if we look here at the options, this is saying what type of check are you doing on this particular item. So these that are listed in here at the moment, they can be deleted or removed or amended, or additional fields can be put into this section. So I am going to create a simple ID check. Notice when I select the check type, it then duplicates that into the name and description. The name is what you're normally looking at when you look at an item. So that's the most important field. So I would leave that the same. Description, however, you could put in something different, like what is it you're looking for? So in this example, it could be passport and you could put / driver's license, for example. I'm going to leave mine the same, but you can put that in if you wish. You then have two non-mandatory fields. So these are optional, as you can see. And first of all, you've got due date. So all that is saying is when you have met the candidate or spoken to the candidate, how many days have they got until they need to provide that item to you? So it could be they get a week's time. So you could say, look, can you get back to me and provide me with your ID within a week's time? So then you might put in there 7. Or you could put in 5 if it's 5 working days, however you want to work it. The only real benefit for this is if you're using the Compliance and Onboarding Studio, which hopefully you will be, you'll be able to then select the due date as one of the metrics in that studio, and then you can view how many days until it's due. You then have item type, again, is optional. So if we select from here, you can see that in here. So you could put identity in this particular one, or you could actually put photo as its photo ID that you need. Then you've got a hiring requirement in there. So in here, you've got preferred or required. So what this is saying, the whole point of this compliance section is when you're booking a candidate into a job, you can put stops in place that if you have not ticked off they've received that item, then you can't book them into the job. So with that in mind, think of this. So is that item preferred? So the item is something that you're being extra cautious by asking for, or you're double checking something, or something like that. So it's not something you need to have to send that candidate out for a booking. It's something that is preferred, but you don't want to stop that candidate going out. Or alternatively, you've got required. So you're going to be saying this documentation or thing we need, we must have that. If not, we don't want the candidate going out to that client. So that will be a required item. We've then got enforcement stage. This very much links to a required item. So again, thinking in mind of what I've just said. So imagine that you've got your compliance against candidates. You're going to attach items against them that you need or packages. Alongside this, you're going to mirror that in the jobs you're creating. So I've got a temp candidate and I've created a temp job. I'm going to also attach exactly the same items or packages against that job. So what happens is then when I start shortlisting candidates into that job, it's fine when you shortlist, but as you're working through that job, you can choose to put in stops against that candidate so they can't move forward unless you've ticked off that you've received that item. So with that in mind, you've got new hire. So what new hire means is if you try and get a shortlisted candidate and tick next to them and send their CV out to the client, or if you try and book an interview with that client against that particular job, the system will look back against the candidate record. It will check those items, see if they're ticked off, that you've received them. If they have not been, what it will do is it will stop you. So you will not be able to send a CV or arrange an interview if you select new hire. Alternatively, you might want to select pre-hire. So what that is in this example is you'll be able to shortlist people, send CVs, arrange interviews, and you could even make them an offer against the job. But when you do that final stage of trying to book them into any of your jobs, then pre-hire means if they don't have the items ticked off, that you will not be able to book them into the job. That also takes a look at unbooking with replacement on the contract side. So it also looks at that workflow. And rehire is all about extensions. So you book someone into a job for 3 months, that job is then extended, no matter whether it's 1 day or a year. The system will then look at, again, when you make that extension, it will look again at those items and say, will they expire in that time? Or have they got them in that time? So it does a double check. So in my example, I'm happy for them to have CVs sent and have interviews, but when they're going to booking, that's when I wanted to do a check against the compliance. So I'm going to select pre-hire, but I'm also going to select rehire as well. So it checks at booking stage and it checks any extensions. You then have a section, turn on expiry warnings. So if this particular item, this ID check, you're going to be putting in an expiry date against it, then you're going to want to tick this. So you're going to want it when you're trying to book somebody. So when it's looking at pre-hire and rehire, and it's looking and double checking at this point, it's also checking, is there an expiry date and when do we check it? So with the ID check, if it's a UK-based ID check, so you're looking for passport or ID, so UK resident, you might not need any expiry warnings because you might not be checking when the passport expires. You might, but you might not. If it's maybe a non-UK resident, so you're looking for a visa, you're then going to want to put an expiry date against that visa. So in that example, you would definitely want to look at the expiry warnings. And then you can pick when you want to be warned about the item. So see how you've got options in here. So you do want it before the end of the booking, within a certain amount of period of time. And then active. So you're always going to want your new item to be active. That means you can go and select it from against your candidate. If at any point you want to deactivate an item, you can then come in and edit it, take off the active tick, and you will no longer be able to use that item. And once you've done that, you can confirm, and it creates that onboarding item for you. And like I say, you'll be able to edit at any time and deactivate it if you want to, or change any of the requirements. So last thing on this particular section is the actual item itself does have its own document library. You might be thinking, why is that? So it's very important. So say when you do a certain, it's not relevant when it comes to ID checks, but for other compliance items, you may have a form that you need or a questionnaire that you need completed, linking to that particular requirement. If you do, you can go to either compliance documents or onboarding, depending on the more relevant title. You can add document, like you always do to the document library. You can forward to next step and browse and select that questionnaire or form or letter and attach it into that folder. So what that does is when you are in the candidate profile, you're sitting on the compliance and onboarding page, you can tick and select that particular item. So whichever one you're looking at. And then what you can do is you can preview or review the document that's attached against that item. So you can take a look at it anytime. And then you can also send out that particular document to the candidate. So say you needed a, I don't know, criminal convictions questionnaire linked that you needed completed. You would build a criminal convictions item, you would tick next to it, you click on send item or document, sorry, I think it's send document, and it would create an email, send out to that candidate, and it would attach that form for you. So actually a really useful thing for some of the items you're going to be adding into the system.